Hey scrapbook friends, it's Nicole from Nicole's Scrapbooks, and I'm here today to do another album walkthrough for you of a vacation album that I made. It's actually a 2-volume scrapbook album from our trip to Hawaii in 2016. I say it's a 2-volume scrapbook, but if you will look at these, they are really thick, heavy Creative Memories albums. The spines keep popping up. And I think I've decided that I'm going to split these somewhere and make them into 3 volumes. Just because they're big and heavy and a little bit unwieldy. But right now it's 2 volumes, and so we're going to flip through these just so you can see where it is right now. I'll probably have to add another title page and an end page for whatever the 3rd album ends up being. This Palm album was an incentive a few years ago from Creative Memories. I think it was probably a recruiting incentive from CM. I was fortunate enough to earn one, and then I was able to trade with somebody else for a second, and did manage to get my hands on a 3rd from somebody else who had earned it. So I'll be able to have all of mine in this same very cute Palm album. So we're going to start with volume 1. And here we go. So title page, I used the Sunburst recipe template. I believe this was the first, maybe it was the second of the recipe templates that Creative Memories released. And basically this is a plastic design that helps you position your photos. I have done a video about how to use the recipe templates. They're super fun, and I think they make a great title page. You have the option of doing like one focal point photo and a lot of paper, or putting pictures in all the squares, or some combination. So I used the Sun-Kissed paper pack. I used a lot of that in this album. And I mixed and matched a few where I didn't have a picture that would fit. I just put in paper. Or here where like that picture didn't quite fit anyway, I put paper and then I put the picture, and I think it looks great, even though the picture itself was a horizontal picture, so it didn't want to fit in this kind of, it's not even a horizontal shape. I don't know. Anyway, don't be afraid to think outside the box and use paper where you need to and pictures where you need to. So here we are on our way off to Hawaii. This layout uses the Gallivant paper pack. This is one of my favorite collections from Creative Memories that we've had. I just loved it. I loved just the colors and the artwork, and I'm sad that it's gone. But anyway, this is Gallivant, and my daughter Katie lives in Utah. We live in Alabama. We were going to Hawaii, which is where my husband and I both grew up. My husband is Hawaiian, and she flew from Salt Lake, and we were able to arrange it that we were on the same connecting flight from Seattle to Honolulu. And so I got this fun picture of all 5 of us and our family together. While we were on our way to Hawaii, my sister gave birth to twins. And so I added that in here because I think that's a fun thing that I remember, was getting off the plane and getting the picture of the new twins. And if you've seen my 30-year high school reunion album, you know that while I was on that trip, we actually had a funeral, and I included that in the vacation album because that was part of what the vacation meant for us. So here's a picture of the house that we rented. This is interesting because it is one of the Fast to Fab album pages. So there's no layering on here. This was all pre-printed. All I did was put a title and do the journaling, and all this came pre-decorated. So one of the things I love about the Fast to Fab is that you can mix and match them in with your regular album pages. Sometimes I don't have a whole album that I want to use the same color scheme on, and so it's nice to have those extra pages when I can use them. And I thought in this case it worked out great. One of the other things that I did in this album, you're going to notice, is I picked one font to use for all my titles through the whole album. And that really made the process so much faster. I get really distracted trying to find, the perfect font. And not that there is a perfect font, but this one I just picked one that I liked, and all the way through the book, we're going to see this same font in just different sizes, different colors. Made my job so much easier with scrapbooking. This layout right here, this is a picture of my mother-in-law at the time she was 89. And this is the one picture that I have of her from our visit. The layout itself was from a Close to My Heart Workshops on the Go class that I attended at a retreat. And it's actually a double page layout, but this single page just worked perfectly for this one picture. And so I used it. This page here with the Hukilau Cafe was also one of those recipe templates. I think it was called Cottage Garden. It has a big circle here, and then the rays coming out. You can't even see any of that because I covered up with pictures. But I still like the rays coming out, and I love that I had these little laser cut leaves to go around, and then I found these really cute little dimensional food stickers that I just scattered around. So it's kind of a busy page, but I like the way it turned out. I think the paper's from the Blend and Bloom green paper, probably. So whenever we go home to Hawaii, we always stop and visit the cemetery where this was where my husband's father is buried. And I don't want to make cemetery pages depressing or dark. I like having a little bit of brightness and to think more about the happy memories of the people that we are going to visit. This was our first time to actually visit my father-in-law's grave. The last time we'd been to Hawaii prior to this was 2014 for his funeral. And so we were there for the burial and all that, but now we have the headstone and some of that stuff. So that was this layout. And then the next layout is a different cemetery where my husband's mom is buried. They were divorced, and so they're not buried together. Again, I tried to do bright colors, and we're maybe a little irreverent and sarcastic, but the family does own several cemetery plots here at this beautiful cemetery in Hawaii. And so here are my kids trying them out for size to see if that maybe is where they someday would want to be buried. My hometown is in Laie. I grew up there, and so they'd added some new buildings, and so these are just a picture of the new McDonald's and the new Marriott that didn't used to be there. So I added that for just my own, this is my heritage, my life. This is another one of the Cool Serenity Fast to Fab pages that I was able to work in here. These are our friends that they were leaving to go on vacation the day after we arrived, and yet she invited us to dinner, fed me dinner the day before she left to go on her own vacation. So it was super fun to get to see her, and I journal a little bit about that here. The first full day that we were there, we went out to the swap meet. If you've been to Hawaii, the swap meet at Aloha Stadium is a great place to get inexpensive souvenirs and just to kind of get a taste of a little bit of local flavor. And I happened to find just a cute little tiara. So here's me and my tiara and us at the swap meet. And then continuing our kind of tour of graveyards, we went to a graveyard in Haleiwa where we think some of my husband's ancestors are buried. We were using the Find a Grave app, and we're looking around to find these graves and found some names that we think might be family members. It was not, people that he had known. While we were looking around, we went inside the church to see if anybody could help us find those graves in the cemetery, and the woman there could not, but she gave us a tour of this little church in Haleiwa that we've driven by dozens of times. And, when you go to Europe, it's common to go in and tour churches, and I guess I didn't know that you could do that in other places, but apparently in Hawaii, she was happy to show us around. Just a small church all the way around their sanctuary. They have these really pretty stained glass windows. And so I took pictures of all the stained glass windows, and I think they're Stations of the Cross, maybe. I didn't journal that part or remember it. So, I didn't write it down then, and so I can't remember it now. But just cut them out. I obviously didn't think hard, and they're not the same size. I didn't, make sure that I was the same distance every time. But I think this makes a cute little border. I just put a strip of, wood grain paper, and then, some of the things that they have in the church that I thought were interesting. So right across from that church is Matsumoto Shave Ice. If you've been to Hawaii, this is kind of a common place to stop for shave ice, which is similar to a snow cone, but it's not the same as a snow cone because a snow cone is crushed and shaved ice is shaved. And we actually saw Mr. Matsumoto walking into his shop, which was really cool. I didn't necessarily know there was a Mr. Matsumoto. The paper here is from my beloved Mermaid Cove, one of my very favorite paper packs that Creative Memories has had, which is sadly recently retired just within the last few months, but I love it and I've used a lot, and a lot in this book. And I think this was a Creative Memories project recipe layout. So they, kind of tell you how to cut it and how to put your papers, and it was great. Maybe it wasn't a project recipe. I don't know. It was somebody else's idea because I remember copying somebody else's idea. This one for sure was a project recipe. This was the Simply Sunshine project recipe. It uses my beloved Rainbow Border Maker cartridge, also sadly retired. Again, my same old font, a couple different sizes and colors. And I just wrote about the chickens. We were staying out on the north shore of Hawaii. There are tons of just kind of randomly roaming around chickens. And it's noisy and funny. And we woke up several mornings to find eggs that had been laid on our porch, and the chickens were there, and they are noisy. And it was just a big part of our trip was these dang chickens. So these are the chickens. And then we went to the Bishop Museum, which is a Hawaiiana heritage museum owned by the Bishop Estate, and just a lot of old Hawaii heritage. And whenever I do multiple layouts of the same place or event, I like to tie them all together. And what I chose to do for this one was just to do a simple border along the side and keep the pages white. This paper was from Sunkissed and almost has like a Hawaiian quilt pattern in it. And you probably can't see it, but just a whole little Hawaiian quilt pattern. And so I just used that for all my layouts. And I'm not going to talk too much about these as I flip through, unless you want to hear about Bishop Museum stuff, and I can, private message me or post in the comments, and, I'll tell you. But it's a fun place to visit if you care about Hawaiian history. But here's, these were like a 2-inch strip, and then I did a 1-inch strip. And then I went back to 2. So there's just a little bit of variety, but super, super simple pages, but gave me a lot of space to journal and, talk about what was going on. And then this next page, my husband's father and both his grandfathers and now his brother are firefighters for the Honolulu Fire Department. And his brother now is assigned to the fire station where their dad used to be a fireman. And so that's really fun. And we always stop and visit him when we come to Hawaii. This layout, I actually used paper from the Imagine collection from Creative Memories, which, if you remember, was the paper that I think was kind of supposed to be designed for a not to be mentioned theme park, but it worked great for this with the black and the yellow. And then I had these little stickers, which I think are Jolie's. They're a little bit dimensional and kind of fun. Sometimes dimensional stickers are too dimensional. TOO dimensional. And I will actually peel out the foam in between the layers and flatten them down a little bit because I think that just makes my pages not quite as lumpy. So this is another fun layout that was so easy. This was from the Sunkissed paper, and we had these papers that were just printed with the little beach scene and then the water. It's got little people floating in the water, super shallow. And I loved it. All I did was put those as a background. I feel like this makes a border at the top. And then I just put my pictures. I had space to journal. The only thing that was really sad is I did love these little people floating in the water. And I had to cover them up to put my pictures on. But sadly for them, my pictures were more important to me than they were. And then the 2 next pages that go along with this is actually a different paper pack. It was Maritime from Creative Memories. I did nothing. I just put it's kind of a watercolor design. You see there's no embellishments, no nothing for both of these 2 layouts. So they were super fast. Now this paper pack was from National Scrapbook Day a few years ago. And I have found it very difficult to use. It's super bright and doesn't necessarily match things that I take pictures of, but it worked out okay for this. I'm pretty sure this was a sketch maybe from a Creative Memories virtual crop or something that I copied, because it's not really something I think I would have thought to do on my own, but I think it turned out pretty cute. We did find a old-fashioned pop top, which my kids had never seen. They've only seen the kind that you know, pop and leave on your cap. And so I took a picture of that and wrote a little bit about how fun that was. Next, we went to the Hukilau Marketplace, which is an extension of the Polynesian Cultural Center. If you have been to the Polynesian Cultural Center, it is one of the top tourist attractions in Hawaii. I think the Arizona Memorial is the #1 attraction, and the Polynesian Cultural Center is #2. A great, great place to visit. I actually grew up about a block away from the back of the Polynesian Cultural Center, and so this place is near and dear to my heart. I worked there when I was in high school, and you know, it's just someplace that I really love. And we hadn't taken our kids, because turns out when you have to pay to go, it's a lot more expensive than when you just know people that can get you in for free. But I used some paper. I think this was from one of the textiles paper packs from Creative Memories, and it just kind of looks like those roll-up beach mats. And so I thought it worked really great for this kind of Hawaii themed album. And I did it on 2 pages. And she is not hurt. She's laughing. I would not have taken a picture if she was on the ground crying in pain. But she was laughing. There's a couple pages in here where there's a lot of laughing going on with our family, which is fun. Part of the Hukilau Marketplace, they have a thing called the Ukulele Experience, where they show the steps of building a ukulele. And right about this time, my husband had just started to get the germ of an idea to build his own ukulele. And so this was very interesting for him. He does play the ukulele. My daughter plays the ukulele, and they love it. So this was fun. Again, I used my same beloved rainbow border maker cartridge. I think it must have been new when right about the time I was working on this album, because I do see that I've used it several times, but I also really do love it. And then this paper is also, again, from Sunkissed. So the next day we came back and actually went to the Polynesian Cultural Center. The Hukilau Marketplace is kind of their outside shopping area, and this is the actual attraction that you have to pay to go into. So I included our tickets. I always like to grab a couple of the little guide pamphlets, guidebook type things that I can then use in my layouts later on. I love to put a map. I've done this with like Disney trips too. I put a park map. And so I was able to cut up this little guidebook. I had 2 or 3 of them, I think, so I could have fronts and backs. But then I was able to use that kind of as my layout. And this is an unusual layout for me, because although it has a picture, I don't know who that is. So it's mostly memorabilia and journaling about our trip. And I do a lot of wallpapering. I think you have noticed that a lot of times I cover my Creative Memories page with a piece of pattern paper and then create my layout on top of that. And so I was thinking I was going to do that, and I was trying to figure out what papers I would use for my Polynesian Cultural Center pages. And then I remembered, I think somebody actually suggested to me the natural pages from Creative Memories. And so I decided to use the natural pages instead of the white pages, and I absolutely love the way it turned out. I did take a natural page and I cut off the reinforced edge, which we call jeeping. I cut off the jeeping edge, and I used the inside piece to wallpaper on the white page to make the layout flow together. Hopefully, until I pointed it out to you, you didn't notice that this side of the jeeping is white and this side is the natural, because I think it still flows together very well, even though I changed colors halfway through the album. So I just did a lot with green on the natural pages. These are very simple pages. They went together really quickly. I think the emphasis stayed on the photos and with lots of space to journal. So this was the On the Vine border punch. This one was called the Filigree, and I decided here that I needed to have 2 different colors. Originally, I was just going to do the green all the way through, but this one had flowers. So I punched it twice, cut these out with scissors, and layered them on top of the green. And then I decided I would do my title in the color. The Polynesian Cultural Center is divided up into villages representing several South Pacific islands. And so I did kind of a layout for each of the villages. So here's the Tonga page. We stopped and did a little fishing. And I don't use my circle, custom cutting system circles as much as I sometimes want to, but it's a good way to fit several pictures on a page because, you know, this is 7 pictures I had, but most of it was just water. And I just wanted to show you like the poor little fish eating, I think it was probably bread we were feeding them. I have no idea what they had us feeding them. I used one of the retired wave border, I think it was Ocean Waves border maker. And I love the winter vine border punch as seaweed. I think it turns out really cute. And then I have these little fish from the Outdoor Adventure Quartet punch that just fit perfectly on here. We did not catch any fish, but we saw somebody catch a fish and happened to be across the lagoon and got pictures of the person actually catching a fish. So some stranger is now in my scrapbook because they succeeded at catching a fish. So the canoe pageant, I told you I grew up about a block away from the Polynesian Culture Center, and we could hear the canoe pageant all the time. We'd be playing outside, and we would know it was 3 o'clock because we'd hear the drums start and the music from the canoe pageant. So it's a fun memory that I have of the canoe pageant. This hibiscus punch was an incentive punch at one time for Creative Memories, and then the tropical leaf is one that I loved and was very popular and just recently retired. So this one here for Hawaii, these were some laser cut borders. I think they might be from Walkabout, which was our Australia paper pack. I don't actually remember which pack collection they were from, but they were identical. They both had this little hammock on them. And so when I first lay it down, the fact that it had a hammock right here was like too matchy for me. So I just took my X-Acto knife and cut out that hammock, and now I like that little bit of variety with the one side that has the hammock and then the other that is different. And here we are laughing again. We had a really great time on this trip, and our family actually laughs a lot. And so I have lots of pictures of us laughing. So Samoa, if you go to the Polynesian Cultural Center, the Samoan Village is one of our favorites and with one of the most popular. And one of the stars kind of the Samoan Village who does the demonstrations, actually I had gone to college with him. We were classmates at BYU Hawaii way back in the 90s. But I remember him, he remembers me, and that was kind of fun to see him. I actually have his picture a little bit later on. Again, we have the tropical leaf punch. So these are super simple, but I really like them. I mean, this would not be hard to duplicate. I love some straight lines and just, you know, fill in with some journaling where you have things to write. So this is a fun one, and one of the reasons I showed this album was I was talking to somebody this weekend about this particular album. When we went to the Polynesian Cultural Center, they taught us how to weave these little fish out of a palm leaf. And I very, very carefully brought this home from Hawaii thinking, oh, it's flat, I could put it in my scrapbook. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It's fragile, and I don't know kind of what the archival qualities may or may not be of a palm leaf. And so rather than put this in my scrapbook right here where it might have been, where it's going to get crushed and broken, I actually just have it hangs up on a bulletin board in my scrapbook room. And instead I recreated it with some folded paper. I did have to go on YouTube and find a video about how to do it because I couldn't remember from 2016 when I was putting this together, but I think it turned out really cute with my little folded fish on this layout. So here again, I just used the on the vine border, cut some circles, simple page, and I love it. I love that there's places for me to do some journaling, and the pictures are fun, and I think all these Polynesian Cultural Center pages go together very well. So here's Cap. He's the one that was my classmate, and so he's kind of one of their stars. And anyway, so I did a little tribute to Cap, my friend, in here. And then this one was kind of one of those professional photos that they have you take when you go to the luau. And I had used the first, they come in a folder, and I had used the other side of the folder is where I cut this out, this logo, to use as kind of my title for this whole section. And decided to leave it on that cardboard. I pulled it out from behind and peeled off the back, so it was, a lot of times there are two layers and they slide the picture in, but this one I peeled it off and just stuck it on top so I could have this cute border for my layout. Okay, so now we're in the luau, and I am super proud of this artwork that I did. I had posted this in my on my Facebook business page when I created it. But if you see here in this picture from the luau, these, I think they're called kahilis. I could be wrong. My Hawaiian heritage teacher would give me another D probably. But it's these kind of honorary poles. They're made of feathers. They're on these sticks, and they would carry them before the royalty, the ali'i from Hawaii. And I was able to recreate these just using some cardstock as a base. And then this is the leftovers from the scallop border punch that we had. And even the ribbon or the string that I used to make these bows is just a super thin piece of cardstock that I cut and kind of rolled in my hands and was able to make little paper ribbon. So even if all you have is paper and you cannot find any embellishments that necessarily go with what is in your photos, sometimes you can create a page embellishment that you're super proud of, and I'm super proud of these. So wanted to show those to you. And then here was the night show, and I kind of tried to use their logo from the show as my inspiration, and I just hand cut this. Whenever I have something like this that I want to hand cut, I try to do it on a piece of scratch paper first, where I can sketch it out a lot of times and cut it and make sure it's exactly what I want, and then I use that scratch paper one as a template to trace and cut out like my final piece. But I think that turned out really well, and it looks a lot like the logo, so that made me happy. Okay, so the next day we went to see the Arizona Memorial. And so I'm switching back, as you can see here, from the natural pages black to white. This paper pack was called Imagine That. This is also another not specific to any brand of theme pack or theme park paper pack that I created this with. I had saved a couple of the flyers that they gave us. I love to make pockets. I've showed you that in another album that I've done. So this is just a little pocket behind the designer paper, and I can just slide my little park map thing in here. And because it is CM album, you know, it opens from the side, and I can just pull it out. If anyone ever wants to look at it, it's there. I have a little coin that we bought, and it's in just two large photo corners stuck together to make a little holder. And then this was a mini peekaboo pocket that we had for a little while that I had stamped. They sell like a national parks passport, and I own that passport, but do I ever remember to take it on vacation with me? Of course I don't. So that was my little stamp for my passport. And then here, for all of the USS Bowfin, we went and visited the submarine, the Bowfin, while we waited for our time to go to the Arizona Memorial. And I used my silhouette and I cut out some little porthole type circles. And I'm going to use those for all the Bowfin pages, and you'll see those through. Then they had a thing where, you know, you can get your picture taken, and they put it on the front of a little fake newspaper. And that, I'm a sucker for those. I just, you know, they see me coming and they're like, oh, she's a scrapbooker, she's going to buy that. So here it is. I bought it, but here it is in my scrapbook. I used a pocket page for this. And the cardboard that comes in the CM Pocket Pages is photo safe. So I just kind of wrapped this around because it, you know, it was longer than would fit on a 12 by 12. It was probably, you know, 11 by 15 or 16 or something like that. So I just saved that in case anyone ever wants to, you know, read some of the other articles that are in this reproduction of the front page of the newspaper from December 7th, 1941. So here we are at the in front of the memorial, and then inside, not the memorial, sorry, the submarine, and then all the way through here I just have this same kind of, again, tying together kind of like I did with the Bishop Museum pages, just by using these two shades of gray and and adjusting kind of where I put the borders that went around. But that way the focus is on my pictures, and I still had, you know, flexibility based on whatever kind of pictures that I have. I'm looking at this realizing I didn't do much journaling, and maybe I need to go back and fix that. Especially this one. I love this because they had this, these little things that you could look through. Here's my son looking through them. Here's a picture close up, and you can see the Arizona Memorial in here. And then my husband with his phone took this picture. So it's through this binocular, and I think it's just really cool. And showing you this video makes me realize I really need to journal about that, because somebody else might not realize that that's the same things. So thanks for letting me do this video for you so I remember to journal. So then finally we got to go to Pearl Harbor to head out to the memorial. I did put all of our tickets. Sometimes I don't put all the tickets that we have, but for this one I like the look of kind of spreading them out and having them all there. So these are just pictures from the memorial. This is like a Navy radar station or something. One of our friends, or a couple of my friends actually, are involved with the company that made those. So that was kind of fun to see our friend's radar. And then here we are on the Arizona Memorial. And I really wanted these pages to be dignified and reverent, and simple. I didn't want to take too much away from the actual memorial. And so I just used some platinum shimmer paper with the star border punched out of it, and nothing else for all of these memorial pages, because I just feel like it needs that simplicity to go with the theme of the pages. So these are all the Arizona Memorial pages. I bought this little bookmark from the gift shop. It's made of wood. It's very thick. But I put it in a little pocket right here so it won't slide down. It can move around a little bit, but it stays in here, and then the tag that came with it. But it's the same design that is of these windows in the memorial. And I just thought it was lovely, and I wanted to keep that. And so sometimes I do, I look for flat memorabilia that I can later put in my album. And then this is the oil that is leaking still from the USS Arizona. All these years later, there's still oil that leaks up and leaves these little rainbow shapes on the surface of the water. And it was so powerful and so somber and beautiful, and just a beautiful tribute. And they call it the Tears of the Arizona, which I just think is lovely to have this, you know, tribute to those who gave their lives in Pearl Harbor on that day. And this picture is, I was so fortunate to be able to take this photo. We were the last tour group of the day, and as I was going to get back on the ferry boat, there were only 2 other people, and so I walked a little slower, and I asked the guard, can I just take one quick picture? And I turned around, and I was able to get this beautiful, beautiful picture of the Arizona Memorial empty. And I love this picture, and I did nothing. I put that same platinum shimmer behind it, a little journaling, that was it. So then after we rode the boat back, we walked around the grounds, and they have one of the anchors from the Arizona. So I wrote this, and again, this is that Imagine That paper. This layout I'm especially proud of because I was invited to be a contributor to the Creative Memories blog, and this is a layout that I did for the CM blog. And yeah, they haven't asked me a lot, and so that's really been special to me to have had that time. And it's using the Imagine That paper, and I very specifically wanted to do something that was absolutely not theme park related with that paper, because I love that CM paper is neutral enough that even if it's a theme park specific kind of collection, there are going to be things you can do that are not related to the theme park. So, and then here I just took some quotes and to use this as the end of my book, volume 1. I was going to do both. See how the cover is coming out? It's because my book is too thick. So this is why I'm definitely going to be redividing this. I think I'm going to split right here after the Polynesian Cultural Center. and split here and put this as the part of the next book. I was going to do a single video for both volumes of this book, but we're already at 35 minutes, so I'm going to end this now, and in a couple of days I will post volume 2 of the Hawaii album flip through. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you will enjoy seeing volume 2 when I post that one. Thank you so much, and happy scrapbooking.